Well, you have to have characters that are doing what the audience doesn't want them to do. That raises the tension and, you know, makes things scary.
Hello everyone, the December Review here, back again with another favorites film video. Today, we will be looking at my top 5 favorite Wes Craven films. The horror master has handcrafted some of the genre's greatest films, filled with terror, suspense, and that always present Craven flair behind the camera. Here are my top 5 films of the legendary writer and director.
Hello, Sydney.
Hi. Who is this?
You tell me.
The 1998 film The Serpent and the Rainbow follows Bill Pullman as Dennis Allen, an anthropologist who is hired to investigate a Haitian drug which a company wants to turn into an upgraded anesthetic. Trouble is, the concoction is a top-secret voodoo juice known to turn its takers into zombies, lowering one's metabolic rate as to appear dead so they can be buried, only to be dug up sometime later but alive. Maybe minus their soul. Once in Haiti, Allen finds himself right in the middle of a political upheaval where murder and mystery rule the system. The Serpent and the Rainbow is an unnerving film, switching off from horror to adventure to great special effects to thought-provoking, then right back into pure terror. Its storyline is ambitious, and the unconventional subject matter worms its way through multiple layers of black magic investigation and the warnings of interfering on a way of life whose recourse is hell-bent on driving you insane. You don't watch the film as much as survive it. That claustrophobic nature and imagery is masterfully put together by Wes, drawing on the audience's own thought process as we feel what Allen feels. When the credits roll, the film stays with you long afterwards. Wes Craven had his hand in a comic book film way before this recent wave of box office dominance that Marvel has enjoyed. Going back to 1982, Swamp Thing was a DC and Vertigo comic property that Wes wrote for his own feature film. Looking to expand his chops past the early shock work in Last House on the Left and The Hills Have Eyes, Wes took on a lighter tone with the rubber suit titan Swamp Thing, which follows the tale of scientist Alec Holland, who is researching a bioengineering formula which can speed up rapid growth. The lab is raided by the evil Anton Arcane, who is looking to take control over the proceedings. The raid results with Alec on fire, submerging himself in a swamp where he is resurrected by the formula as the superhero charmer Swamp Thing. Hell-bent on revenge, the film follows Alec as he puts a stop to Anton's evil ways. Call it nostalgia, but I just adore this film. A camp fest to be sure, Swamp Thing goes for every cheesy 80s note it can hit and does so successfully. Overall, it's a monster film filled with little moments of terror that hold up to this day. Sure, some of the dialogue and side actors are a bit over the top, but at its core, Swamp Thing plays its narrative well, invoking true feelings for our hero. Adrienne Barbeau also shines as Alice, a scientist who Arcane looks to kill but is saved and sheltered by Alec. The film is also noteworthy for having Harry Manfredini score the production. The Friday the 13th violins dance around the military-style snare drums, creating an odd flow, but you can't help but expect to think that Pamela or Jason Voorhees are going to show up at some point during the film. It's literally the Friday the 13th score at times, and it's fantastic. Side note, somewhere along the way, movies have lost track at just how effective a quality score can be, especially in horror films. Classic films like Psycho, Jaws, and Halloween are propelled by the score, helping create the tension and overall believability, which in turn encourages the audience to take more of a personal stock in their proceedings. Yes, there are directors today like Paul Thomas Anderson, whose music never disappoints, but I'm talking the average film here. Even the horror remakes can't get it right. That said, Swamp Thing has a nice blend of cheese and scares, with Wes getting to flex his muscles in a more action-orientated environment. Also, check out the recent TV series, which stars the great Derek Mears as the man in the swamp suit. Great stuff there as well.
It is you, dear Bruno, who will tell us whether or not the formula works.
Bruno, what's the matter with you?
Come.
By the time this film came into consideration as the 7th film in the Freddy Krueger saga, slashers were effectively dried up. The 80s saw a run on horror franchises pumping out the next chapter every year with dwindling box office returns. Michael Myers started a cult, Jason Voorhees went to New York, and Freddy found himself dead. So too was the idea of keeping the legendary brands going. Wes Craven jumped back into the series and instantly added a jolt of reality the genre needed. Returning his cast from the original Nightmare on Elm Street, but having them play themselves on screen, Heather Langenkamp starts having some real-life Freddy interruptions. Her world is thrown into chaos as her son starts having visions of Fred and her husband is killed. Robert Englund shows up as himself, as does John Saxon, and Wes Craven himself, who informs Heather that he has also been having issues. Seems Freddy was just the visual form taken by this evil entity that is now trying to break into the real world. And it's up to Heather to step back into the Nancy character one more time. A New Nightmare ushered into theaters back in 1994, and it started the new phase the horror genre would explode into in the coming years. Sure, it wasn't a major box office smash, but it sowed the seeds that the slasher concept needed to keep chugging along. The standard tropes audiences had come to expect weren't going to cut it anymore. With A New Nightmare, Wes created a new world by bringing in the real world, which in turn made Freddy scary again. Much like the sleeping pills trail Nancy found towards the climax of the film, the idea behind A New Nightmare was just the early breadcrumbs for what was about to happen.
Just keep your eyes open. Do that for me, okay? Come on, stay awake. Stay awake for me, Dylan. I want you to stay awake, okay? Stay awake. Keep your eyes open, okay? Dylan, what's the matter?
Julie, behind you.
There's nothing there. Dylan, what's wrong? Dylan, stop it. You're scaring me. Dylan.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes?
Who is this?
Who are you trying to reach?
What number is this?
And just like that, a phone call was never so scary as it was back in 1996, when Wes and writer Kevin Williamson unleashed Scream into theaters. Taking a page from New Nightmare where reality meets the screen, Scream ran with that concept and overhauled the slasher genre with ideas we still see today almost 25 years later. The film follows Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, the high school student with a dark past as her mother was murdered. On the anniversary of her death, her friends start getting strange phone calls and bodies start adding up. With the help of the local deputy Dewey Riley and reporter Gail Weathers, Sydney must put the pieces together to find out who was on this rampage and how it fits in with her family. Sure, that sounds like your typical setup, but within that seemingly standard structure lies the true genius of the film. See, the entire cast knows about horror films. They have seen all of the horror films. There are rules to those horror films, and that knowledge is used throughout the series. There are references to a plethora of other films, and at one point in time during a party which is playing Halloween, the Carpenter soundtrack plays out for so long you think Michael might pop in at any second. The film is smart. It takes decades of horror knowledge and breaks it down, which in turn starts its own new set of ideas and rules. The film is also gory. There is a bunch of extra catch-up throughout the killing spree. And above all, it's scary. It takes a concept like the random phone call seen previously in films like Black Christmas and When a Stranger Calls, and infuses it with modern principles, all the while literally acknowledging by name all of the slasher films that came before it, including, of course, A Nightmare on Elm Street.
His name wouldn't be Steve, would it?
How do you know his name?
Turn on the patio lights. Again.
Oh, God!
I wouldn't do that if I were you. Yes.
Please don't hurt us.
That all depends on you. I want to play a game. Then he dies right now.
And my number one pick for favorite Wes Craven film is, of course, the original A Nightmare on Elm Street. Released back in 1984, Nightmare spawns the tale of Freddy Krueger, a murderer who was arrested, then let go of the charges due to a technicality. So the parents of the victims decided to take things into their own hands and tracked him down and burned him alive. Well, turns out he has returned in the dream world to seek revenge and begins to kill the children of Elm Street while they sleep. It's up to Nancy Thompson to bring Freddy back into her realm so she can take him out once and for all. The beauty of this film is its effectiveness to just be downright scary. Taking the idea of the film from some reports he read in the news about sleeping deaths and basing Freddy off of a real encounter he had with someone as a kid, the film feels authentic. Set in the suburban landscape, Heather, her friend Tina, and first-timer on the screen Johnny Depp as Glenn come off as regular people forced into this situation, which makes everything relatable to the audience. That's a great attribute that Wes was able to bring to cinema, where no matter how odd or absurd the story may be, he kept things grounded so everything meant something, which in turn made the films more successful. With Nightmare on Elm Street, Wes could play without any rules, as anything goes when we are dreaming. This is overused to comical lengths in some of the later sequels, but with the original, it was menacing as hell. Everything was designed to creep you out, from the colors chosen on Freddy's sweater to the nursery rhyme which acts like his calling card. The film is a masterpiece of horror movie making which crossed over into the mainstream and will forever live on in the world of cinema and beyond. So there's my list of favorite Wes Craven films. There are a lot more I can mention, and maybe one day I'll take a look at some more of his films because there are a lot more gems to be found. Wes was truly a great writer and director and will forever be known as a legend in cinema. Let me know your favorite Craven films in the comments section and make sure to subscribe to the channel.
And secondly, it's very difficult to know what will later be judged as art. I guess what I've tried to do is I've tried to make movies where I can honestly say I haven't seen that before. and to follow my deepest intuitions and, in some cases, literally my dreams, so that I don't feel like I'm copying something that's come before me. And to try to do things that, speak to sort of the areas outside the fences, where the wild animals are still. Because it seems to me that the things that move us historically, both personally and nationally, are those things that aren't on the grid of rationality.